Hello everyone and welcome back to another session of Elden Ring PvP and another weapon showcase. This time we're taking a look at Varre's Bouquet, which is absolutely a meme weapon through and through. It is a very fun yet challenging weapon to use, and one that I had a surprisingly good time with. This weapon is acquired by completing Varre's questline and looting it off of a corpse in the Mogwin Dynasty Mausoleum. And that's all the information I'm going to give you on that. This weapon requires 8 strength, 16 dexterity, and 24 arcane to wield, and it weighs 2 units. The skill of the weapon is blood tax, and you're stuck with it, because this is a somber weapon. At plus 10, it has a physical base damage of 112, a fire base damage of 100, and a base bleed of 65 per hit. It has an E scaling in strength, C in dexterity, and B in arcane. And that's about all this thing has for the basics. It is pretty clear that this weapon, its damage does not primarily come from its attack rating. It comes from the bleed. This weapon does scale pretty decently with arcane with that B scaling, and as your arcane increases, so will your base bleed. And this weapon is also unique in that it is among only 2 other weapons, the Ripple Crescent Halberd and the Ripple Blade, that are able to be buffed and have an innate arcane scaling. So what that means is, like those 2 particular weapons, this will excel when buffed with status effects because those status effect greases will gain arcane scaling. So you can basically double dip by throwing on, Blood Flame Blade or Blood Grease, and using this weapon. It works out quite well. That's where this weapon becomes somewhat okay to use. It's not good still, don't get me wrong, it's a bad weapon, and that can't be understated. But it can be a very fun weapon to use. Power stancing it, going for the jumping L1, just the instant bleed by landing that attack if you've double buffed up like I did in that first fight, it works out very well. People kind of panic a little bit when you instantly bleed them, no matter what the weapon is. And let's be honest, this is a much more fair weapon to fight against than dual bleed spears of any kind. It's a much more entertaining weapon to fight against. And that's not a bad thing either. Now that said, that is really the only good thing with this weapon. It is good at bleeding people, and it's really only good at it when you have your buff active. As soon as your buff time runs out, you're going to be pretty hard-pressed to make this thing work. The reason being is that the damage is absolutely atrocious. 112 physical and 100 fire. Never mind that it is the objectively worst type of split damage, because fire damage is just the worst non-physical damage type. It's the worst damage type in the game, because rain and water is so common in this game. It just, never mind that, it's just low damage and low attack rating. Even if you max out your stats for scaling with this thing, you're gonna be hitting 200 at the most, so keep that in mind. That's not where you're really getting any value from with this weapon. That said, the skill of the weapon, Blood Tax, is also trash. I was really hopeful with Blood Tax, honestly, I was. The multiple repeated thrusts in quick succession, with bleed building up on every hit, you'd think they'd be decent, at least. Unfortunately, there's no combo with it. You hit your opponent once and they can roll out. You hit them twice and they stagger. Well, yeah, you can build up bleed a little bit with it, but in all honesty, if you hit them once and they roll, well, that second hit will catch the roll and then you won't bleed them, and then they'll be able to just spam roll away. And it's disappointing, especially considering the way that the damage builds up throughout the rapid thrust chain. The first hit does the least amount of damage, the middle 2 hits deal a bit more, and the final hit deals the standard amount of damage for the weapon, which is still really bad. So there's really not much of a point to using blood tax. It doesn't have a good amount of hyper armor. It can't trade hits successfully. Your opponent can roll out of it easily. You do it to style on someone. That's really the purpose of blood tax. There is no other reason to use it. So, you know, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It just kind of is what it is. Other than that, though, another con of this weapon would be that it is actually the second shortest hammer. It's not the shortest, the second shortest hammer in the game, and yet the worst of them in terms of attack rating. It just kind of is what it is. Unfortunately, the shortest hammer is actually just a lot better because it has such a large difference in damage that it can deal and a significantly better skill. The Nox Flowing Hammer is technically the shortest hammer in the game, and we all know how that weapon works. People just sort of spam the skill with it because Flowing Form, well, it makes up for the lack of range on the weapon, to say the least, and the fact that it does have a true combo when you hit them with the initial sweep, you hit them with the slam down as well. It would have been nice if this weapon got a little bit of a, you know, combo to it, but it doesn't. It just is what it is. There's really not much else to say about this thing. It's a meme. It's a fun weapon. It's fun to power stance them and go for jumping attacks and instantly bleed people. People panic, and it's fun to see them struggle with the realization that dual Vikes is not necessarily enough to beat this because instant bleed is just very powerful. And there's nothing wrong with that with this particular weapon. It makes it somewhat viable and very fun to use. It rewards the careful play and properly outspacing your opponent. It's a good weapon to practice with if you're trying to get better at doing that. And that's about it. That's all that this weapon really is good for. But that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Not every weapon needs to be as good as Moonveil. And, you know, I'm okay with that, and you guys should be too. But either way, there's one fight left that's about to start. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I do apologize for the lack of videos. Recently, my health issues have popped back up again. I'm trying to get back into the swing of things with doing some editing and recording and all of that again. It will be a bit slower than the daily basis that it was. Apologies for that, but health comes first, as I'm sure you guys understand. So remember, resistance is not a meme stat, and I will see you all next time.